to a hug, and I didn't even get like a hand. I think he kind of like barely brushed me off, and he wasn't being rude. He was just so excited about seeing you.
Like I'm an old family friend.
My mouth went to the floor.
And then and he didn't say anything about this, and he was like catching up with me and stuff. And I remember your face just like, what the?
Yeah, I mean,
what the blue blazes?
Yeah, I was excited about seeing him. I hadn't seen him in a while, and then all of a sudden it was like I didn't exist because Duane Tudahl was there, and I.
So we get out. We're doing. I did the interview with him, and I know you were sitting on the other side during. I did the interview with him for the most part on this one, and because we'd switch off on different interviews, and I just remember seeing you sitting there and looking kind of like hurt. I felt terrible, but the behind the story is Jim and I had set this up long before this. I had gotten a picture with him, but I had to do a little research on the show, and I told him, look, I actually met you, a year or two earlier, and I sent him the picture. And he goes, oh, yeah, I vaguely remember that. But he said, why don't we do this? Why don't we act like we're old friends and see, and he'll just completely walk by John and act like he doesn't know you and just throw you for a loop. And finally, he did fess up to it. He did say, no, we're just screwing with you.
Yeah, which was funny. I was totally caught off guard, and I hope it's funny for those who are listening. Maybe it's just funny to you and I, Duane. I don't know.
It might be, but I think that to me it shows what a character Jim can be.
Yeah,
and
you know what? You got a point. Yes,
and I think anybody who's seen Jim Marrs, they see the serious side of this guy. When it comes to all this. But he's actually, and the thing I found with a lot of these guys is there's a sense of humor to a lot of these people too.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I've discovered about these people is you hear a lot of the serious research. And Ted Phillips, I can think of times laughing, traveling with Ted Phillips, that my sides hurt.
Yeah.
And with you and I would travel to the point where we'd be so tired after some of this stuff and just rushing from one shoot to an airport and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And, being so tired, but I just remember laughing at times. And even when I watch these shows, looking at certain things and saying, I remember that because I remember we rigged this up really carefully. Or there was a scene in Texas's Roswell that has a well. Well, we didn't have a well to throw things in, so my wife and I created a well, a tube basically made of cardboard, and built it in my driveway, and threw pieces of styrofoam down into it.
And it looks pretty good.
This is the kind of budget we have for this stuff.
And there's all those little tricks and tricks of the camera to try and fake what we really can't afford to show. So
I will say something that makes these shows look amazing, though, and something that's beyond you and me is our graphics guy, Steve Neal.
Yeah. Hold on. Let's definitely get into the graphics, but we got to take a break. We're already at the bottom of the hour. Wow. This part 2 is flying by, Duane. More with Duane Tudahl coming up right after this. Don't go anywhere. Much more coming up on the Black Vault Radio. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're listening to the Black Vault Radio. My guest, Duane Tudahl, producer, writer, director on many different television shows. Duane, you're sharing lots of fun stories with us, and you bring up an excellent point that a crucial part of our shows, of any shows, but our shows on the UFO Files, were the graphics. And many of our graphics were done by Steve Neal, who is an excellent artist in the three-dimensional world. But it really does make a show.
Steve is a guy, I think he's a friend of yours, wasn't he?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Steve is a guy who is also an avid researcher into the UFO field. I know he's friends with certain people out there. But he is a guy that really gets this stuff, and so he was excited to work on our projects. If you look at the range of what he did from our earlier shows to the last shows, it's night and day. The man was delivering early on stuff, but at the end had delivered really feature film level graphics for us when it came to ships, UFOs, lights, whatever it was, that I still look at and think, oh my God, I don't know how you did that, and how you did that for the budget we had.
Yeah. Yeah, he really went out on a limb for us. And one thing that comes to mind with Steve's graphics was when we mentioned the Alien Encounter show, which was the quote-unquote Ted Phillips hour. Right. When he recreated one of the events, in in a 3D world. You and I went out and shot in a grassy field, and it was a bunch of yellow grass, and we set up little blue sandbags as markers. Well, without getting too technical, what happens is that we take that footage, we give it to Steve, and he puts in these UFOs. Well, when we got that footage back, these were the first few that we did in high definition. When we got the high definition graphics back, I think Duane and I practically fell over when we were seeing the reflection of the grass and what was underneath the UFOs in the UFOs.
Right.
Like, to me, I think that's the most fascinating thing, that he's taking the reflection, taking the world that is real and putting it into the reflection of something that isn't real.
I honestly don't think our shows would look nearly as good. They might have had some great information, but his icing on our cake just really made it that much better. There's shots when we did a story about Aztec that you see the ship as the Jeep and the truck are pulling up, and the shot is moving, and you see the ship moving in the shot. It's on the ground. It's just the things he brought to it. I haven't seen the kind of work that he does, even in a lot of features. You watch a lot of TV shows and things, and you don't see that kind of element of skill that the man brings to it. So I am completely in his debt, and I hope that when I get the chance, or you and I get the chance to do more of these kind of shows, that we can use him again, because he is just an amazing we'd have to go hire him because he wasn't on the staff or anything like that, but he bent over backwards trying to find the way that and we'd send things back, but he just always stepped up to the plate, always.
Yeah, he absolutely did. Now, Duane, let me ask you, you're executive producer of your own company, Mariner Point Productions.
Yes.
Let me ask you a little bit about that company, and what are you doing now? Are you still involved with UFO Productions?
Right now, there's a show. I don't want to go into too much detail about it, but there's a show that I'm in pre-production on that we're working on that involves the field of ufology. So yes, that would be accurate to say that it really kind of looks into it's the natural progression of what you and I were doing, which is especially like the Ted Phillips show, where we went and we interviewed Phyllis Buttinger and people like that that look into the evidence. I want to do a show that kind of looks into the actual physical evidence and tests it. And I don't think there's any shows that are really, really doing that right now. But that's where my interest in this is finding out the proof, not necessarily the proof, the evidence. The difference between evidence and proof being, evidence is the things that point towards something. Proof is finally making a conclusion. I don't know if you can have enough evidence to make a conclusion yet, but I would like to interview scientists. I would like to interview people that I think can weigh the scales in one direction or the other. And also, if you find out things that are accurate, pay more attention to them, test them, put them through the rigors. If you find things that you test and you find to be not accurate, drop it off the table and start focusing on the things that are more, that could potentially lead to the discovery. I'm not saying that if it turns out to be, aluminum, that it disproves the case, but it may not be the piece of evidence that puts you over the top. You know what I mean?
What I find really interesting listening to you talk is, and I think anybody involved or that has been involved on camera as a UFO expert, so to speak, or expert on camera, is that it sounds like you're really taking a lot of time and a lot of care with this topic, which really is a rarity. So I commend you for that. And I'm not saying that because you're my friend. I'm saying that because you can really tell. You obviously are knowledgeable about not only the stuff that you have done in the past and researched in the past, but it's like you've taken the next step and you're going even farther and even farther. Let me ask you, why? We'll just end it there. Why?
Okay. Two or three things on this. First off, most UFO programs are bad. I find that most UFO programs are insulting. Everyone you see about that says the Roswell story, the Roswell truth, and you watch it and you see people interviewed on there that you're going, oh, this is an expert. I recognize him. Oh, and they're all saying these things. And in the last 5 minutes, they basically say, but the evidence shows that it probably was Project Mogul. That's it. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
No, the evidence didn't show that. I'm shocked at you. But it makes all those experts that were on there look like they're agreeing with that conclusion. The Peter Jennings show. You saw that.
Yeah,
Everybody's out there. And the first hour of that, I think you were interviewed for it, weren't you?
All on the 100% on the cutting room floor. But
okay.
yes,
yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it, too, which I'll bring up when
what
you're
was that?
done.